Welcome to English Podcast Expert, the podcast where you improve your English from basic to advanced by listening to natural and meaningful conversations. In today's episode, you will hear an imaginary story told completely through dialogue. It's designed for B2 level learners, so pay attention to vocabulary, expressions, and how ideas develop naturally in conversation. Let's begin our story. Welcome back to English Podcast Expert, everyone. Today we're going to tell you a story in a slightly different way. Instead of reading a narrative, we're going to create the entire story through conversation, so you can hear how English sounds in a natural and spontaneous exchange between two people.
That's right, and as always, we want you to imagine that you're sitting with us, listening closely, maybe even repeating some sentences after us. Today's imaginary story begins on a cold evening in October, in a quiet mountain village where something unusual is about to happen.
So let's imagine that I've just arrived in this village because I received a mysterious letter. The letter didn't explain much. It only said that someone here knows the truth about my grandfather's past and that I should come alone if I want answers.
And I'm already in the village, sitting in the only cafe that stays open late at night. I've been waiting for you, even though we've never met before. I recognize you immediately because you look exactly like the old photograph I was given.
That would definitely make me feel uncomfortable. If I walked into a cafe and a stranger looked at me like that, I would probably consider turning around and leaving. But instead, I decide to be brave and walk toward your tables.
When you approach me, I stand up slowly and introduce myself. I tell you that my name is Daniel and that your grandfather once saved my family from losing everything. I explain that I owe him a debt and now I owe you the truth.
I sit down carefully, trying to understand what you're talking about. I tell you that my grandfather passed away many years ago and that my family rarely spoke about his life before he moved to the city. And everything about his past feels like a secret.
I nod because I expected that reaction. Then I take an old envelope from my jacket pocket and place it on the table between us. I tell you that what I'm about to say might change the way you see your family forever.
At that moment, my heart starts beating faster. I ask you directly why my grandfather came to this village and why he never told us about it. I try to sound calm, but inside I feel a mixture of fear and curiosity.
I explain that more than 40 years ago, your grandfather arrived here during a terrible winter storm. The roads were blocked, electricity was cut off, and many families were struggling. He wasn't a tourist. He was running from something much bigger.
Running from something? That makes me even more confused. I ask you what you mean by that and whether he was in danger. I can't imagine my kind and gentle grandfather being involved in anything dramatic or mysterious.
I tell you that he wasn't a criminal, but he was a whistleblower. He worked for a large company that was secretly polluting rivers near several small towns. When he discovered the truth, he refused to stay silent, even though it put him at risk.
I feel shocked because this version of him is so different from the man I knew. I ask you how you know all this information and why you're the one telling me instead of someone from my own family.
I explain that my father was one of the villagers affected by that pollution. Crops were dying, livestock became sick, and people were losing hope. Your grandfather collected evidence and helped expose the company, but powerful people wanted to silence him.
So he came here to hide, I say slowly, trying to understand the timeline. I imagine him arriving in this small village, exhausted and worried, but still determined to do what was right. It suddenly makes me proud of him.
Yes, he hid here for several months, I continue. During that time, the villagers protected him. They shared food, kept his presence secret, and supported his fight. My father always said that your grandfather was the bravest man he had ever met.
So I look down at the envelope on the table and ask you what's inside it. I'm not sure if I'm ready to see whatever proof you brought, but I know I can't ignore it either.
Inside the envelope are letters written by your grandfather. They were addressed to your grandmother, but he never sent them. In those letters, he explains everything, including why he chose to return to the city and live quietly afterward.
That detail makes my eyes fill with tears because it shows a side of him I never knew. I ask you if I can read one of the letters aloud, and you nod, giving me permission to discover his words for myself.
As you open the envelope carefully, I watch your expression. I can see that you're nervous but also determined. I explain that after the company was exposed, your grandfather refused financial compensation because he believed justice should never be about money.
While reading the letter silently, I realized that he felt guilty for putting his family in danger. He wrote that protecting us was his priority, even if it meant staying silent about his heroic actions. That realization changes how I see everything.
I tell you that the village never forgot him. Every year on the anniversary of the storm, the community gathers to remember his courage. However, no one from your family has ever attended because they didn't know the full story.
That makes me feel both sad and responsible. I tell you that maybe it's time for someone from our family to reconnect with this place. I ask you why you personally decided to contact me now after all these years.
I admit that I recently found my father's diary where he wrote about your grandfather. When I read those pages, I realized that history can disappear if no one shares it. I didn't want that to happen.
I appreciate your honesty, and I tell you that coming here felt strange at first, but now it feels meaningful. I say that sometimes we think we know our family completely, but there are hidden chapters waiting to be discovered.
I smile and say that this village still carries his influence. The river is clean again, local farms are thriving, and people trust each other more because of what happened. His decision created a ripple effect that lasted generations.
Hearing that makes me realize that courage can have long-term consequences. I tell you that I used to think bravery was something dramatic like in movies, but now I see that it can be quiet and personal.
Exactly, I respond, explaining that real courage often involves sacrifice and loneliness. Your grandfather spent months away from his family, not knowing if he would succeed, yet he never stopped believing in fairness and responsibility.
I ask you what happened to the powerful people who tried to silence him. I'm curious whether they faced consequences or continued living comfortably without punishment for their actions.
Some of them were prosecuted, I explain, but others avoided serious consequences. However, the company changed its policies permanently because of public pressure. That outcome proves that even one determined individual can influence a large system.
I take a deep breath and tell you that I'm grateful you shared this story with me. I say that it feels like I've just met my grandfather again, but in a different way, almost as if he's still guiding us.
I respond that stories keep people alive in our memories. I also admit that meeting you helps me close a chapter in my own life because I've carried this information for years without knowing who to share it with.
Looking around the cafe, I notice that it's almost empty now. I say that it feels symbolic, like the quiet ending of one story and the beginning of another. I ask you what usually happens next in the village.
I tell you that tomorrow there will be a small gathering by the river. Villagers will light candles and share memories. I ask if you would like to join us not as a stranger but as part of our shared history.
I smile genuinely and say yes, I would like that very much. I explain that I came here searching for answers, but I didn't expect to find a community connected to my family in such a meaningful way.
Then I suggest that before the gathering, I can show you the old house where your grandfather stayed. It hasn't changed much, and the owner kept a few items that belonged to him as a sign of respect.
That offer feels emotional, and I accept it gratefully. I say that walking through that house might help me understand him better, not just as a grandfather, but as a person who faced difficult choices.
I finish my coffee and stand up, telling you that sometimes life connects people in unexpected ways. A mysterious letter brought you here, but perhaps it was simply the right moment for the truth to be shared.
As we leave the cafe together, I realize that this journey was never just about discovering the past. It's also about understanding who I am and what kind of values I want to carry into the future.
And as we walk into the cool night air, I tell you that your grandfather believed every generation has a responsibility to protect what is right. Now that you know his story, maybe that responsibility belongs to you too.
I look at the mountains surrounding the village and say that maybe courage runs in families, even when it stays hidden for years. I promise myself silently that I will keep his story alive and share it with others.
The wind grows stronger as we walk, but neither of us feels cold anymore. Sometimes understanding the past gives warmth to the present, and I think both of us feel that quiet comfort in this moment.
Thank you for telling me everything, I say sincerely. I didn't expect this trip to change me, but it truly has. I feel connected not only to my grandfather, but also to this place and to you.
You're welcome, I reply softly. Stories have power, but sharing them has even more power. Tonight was just the beginning, and tomorrow, when the candles light up the river, you'll see how one brave decision shaped an entire community.
And that's the end of today's imaginary story on English Podcast Expert. We hope you enjoyed this conversational storytelling format and learned new expressions along the way. And keep listening, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep believing in the power of your own voice.
Subscribe